people just don't believe in themselves at all. I mean, the view people have of themselves is so skewed. I could look at someone, I could see so much potential in someone, and it's like I'm talking Greek to the person.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us again for another episode of Conversations with the Founder. Today, we're just going to jump right in. I want to talk about women who feel stuck. Kind of going off of last week's episode about spiritual alignment, this is more so maybe what it looks like to be misaligned, perhaps. But the first question is, why do some women stay stuck for years? Or I guess the overarching question again is, why do some women stay stuck for years? What keeps someone in the same cycle for so long?
A lot of time it's simple answer is confidence. It's confidence, it's self-confidence. People don't realize how much confidence it takes to move forward, because confidence is really belief in yourself and your abilities, right? So you're stuck because you feel like I have no choice, I have no options, I have no way out. So it's first is a lack of confidence, and the second I think is scripts. What are you telling yourself? What story have you told yourself, right? And what stories from your past keeps reminding you that this is your limit, this is where you should be. So it's my experience with working with women, 35, 40 years, those are the two things I see. Lack of confidence, people just don't believe in themselves at all. I mean, the view people have of themselves is so skewed. I could look at someone, I could see so much potential in someone, and it's like I'm talking Greek to the person. Because it's a lack of confidence. And also, what is that rooted in? Scripting. How are you scripted? What have you believed for decades? And that can keep you stuck.
That's definitely a huge part of it. That's kind of centered on the person, though. But how do you know if the problem is you or your environment?
Okay, I'll tell you a story.
Sure.
Real quick, Viktor Frankl. It was like I go back all the time when I'm feeling like I can be getting stuck, right? Viktor Frankl was in the concentration camp, right? You all know about the concentration camp, right? Everything about that screamed death, give up. He lived in his mind. So how could it be the environment?
I mean, that's kind of an extreme.
It is extreme. But you can use that example comparatively for yourself. Like, okay, let's say you're in a bad marriage, for example, because that's usually where women sometimes feel like they're stuck. That may be a little bit more difficult, right? Because again, do you have the resources to leave?
Exactly.
Right. So it goes back to, but do you believe that you can make it on your own? It goes back to that confidence and that belief in yourself. When I worked with my charity, there were women on both sides. Women who remained because they feel like this is better than out there. But there were women who also left because they felt like, let me try. So it goes back to, what are you believing about yourself?
I think something too is some people can be stuck in things that are familiar, like your hometown, you never leave, and there are better opportunities for you somewhere else. Taking that leap of faith to actually go and find that out. Your environment could be holding you back because there's only so many opportunities available to you, especially if you're in a super small town or you're around people that you've known your whole life. You can end up in a loop because there really isn't anything. You actually have to grow out of that place. So sometimes it's usually a mixture of both you and your environment. I mean, I feel like it's impossible to have an issue in one place without the other. So
anywhere you go, there you are. It's something my mother-in-law told me a long time ago. Anywhere you go, she had a great example of her own life. If you're unhappy here, you're going to be unhappy somewhere else. Sometimes it's because it goes back again to scripting. You go back. You talk about the small talk example, right? Why don't they leave? Maybe they're comfortable, right? And it's okay to be comfortable. There's nothing wrong with, as long as you're happy with that decision. But if you're in that small town and you're unhappy, what are you telling yourself? What is a limiting belief? We hear about growth mindset and fixed mindset. Where have you fixed your mindset? Because you could have a twin sister who has a different belief system and will leave that small town. So it goes back again, I believe, to familiarity, confidence, comfort, scripting. Some people are adventurous and some people aren't adventurous. That's another thing too. It's people's personality. But there's no right or wrong. If you want to stay in a small town, there's no right or wrong. as long as you don't believe that you're missing out or that you're stuck. As long as you don't believe that, you're okay. If you're happy where you are, that's fine. But don't stay where you are though and be miserable, because you still have agency. You still have a choice, as hard as it may be, to do something different.
What if someone can't see that they're stuck? Because comfort can keep people in a place that they've clearly outgrown to people around them. What do you do in a situation where maybe someone or your peers are telling you, you're bigger than this, and you don't necessarily believe it yourself? Does that always equal a lack of confidence?
It may be, it goes back to comfort again. Your peers may say, hey, you should be this or you should be that. And you could believe them, right? But am I comfortable where I'm at? If I'm not comfortable, I should be convicted. If you're not comfortable with your peers or whoever saying, hey, I believe more for you than this. If you're convicted, that's, to me, is a warning sign that you are baking something down. But if you look at it and you say, I hear what they're saying, but I'm good, you may just be good. You may not have, I don't use the word ambition the wrong way, but you may not have that drive or that desire to go beyond where you're at. But if you're feeling convicted, there's some unfinished business there.
So what are some of the signs someone can look for that they're holding themselves back?
There's a thing called cognitive dissonance, right? Where the person I am is not who I think I should be, right? That like there's like a disconnect. Like, okay, I'm in this job and it's paying me, and again, don't want to offend my audience here, but it's paying me $45,000, which is decent, right? But in my heart, I know that I deserve $85,000, $95,000. There's a disconnect right there. So I believe that you know when you're making yourself small. When I was younger, I did that. I made myself small so other people could feel comfortable, but I knew I was doing it.
But what are the signs that you're actually the one holding yourself back?
Because I believe that you just know. I believe that you just know, because you have that disconnect. This is not who I am. I am not acting like my true self. This is not who I am. When I was dumbing myself down, I knew it wasn't who I am. I was making myself small. This is not me. But I still did it until I got the confidence to, okay, I'm going to own my smarts. I'm going to own my wisdom. I'm going to own who I am. I'm not going to be apologetic to who I am. But that took growth. That took confidence. That took a belief that it was better for me to be who I am and to make you feel comfortable. But that took time. That took growth. A lot of women, a lot of people, men too. I've had men who lack a lot of confidence. But you have to be intentional about building your confidence. You have to be intentional about it. That's why I did that confidence course years ago. Because when I did a survey on my page, over 1,000 women wrote in and said their biggest challenge was confidence, lack of belief in themselves. And it's still the same today. If you do another poll today, you'll see the same answer.
Mm-hmm. So what role does fear play in staying stuck?
Fear, boy, fear is, God, it's your number one friend and number one enemy as well. Because there's a fear of success, people don't realize it, and there's a fear of failure. Everyone thinks that fear is because I'm gonna fail. That's one kind of fear. That's probably the one you hear about the most. But fear, false evidence appearing real, which is what we call the acronym for fear. It's a belief that this is gonna happen, and I'm gonna probably fail. So let me not try. Or this is gonna happen, and I might actually succeed, but then I'm gonna lose my friends. I'm gonna lose my partner. I'm gonna lose my I'm gonna lose my clique because I'm going to be more successful. Recently, someone came. Okay, I'm not going to say where they came, but I don't want it to be tracked. But recently, someone came, spoke to me about prayer, and their fear, I could just diagnose it right away, was a fear of success because everything was there for them to be successful. They just had to step into it, own it. But people also count the cost of that too. What does success cost? Because success also costs you.
Mm-hmm. So fear plays a pretty big role in staying stuck,
Huge
whether it's fear
role.
of success or fear of failure.
Huge role. Huge role.
So then, what would be the first uncomfortable step that someone would take who's stuck?
The first uncomfortable step is to try to make a goal, right? That's non-threatening. Make a goal. What is my goal, right? A goal is something that you don't have yet but you'd like to get. So you make that goal. But then you have to make one action step towards that goal. I'll use the easiest one. Let's just say losing weight, right? I'm stuck at whatever pounds, right, that you're stuck at. But I'd like to be at this pound, right? That's a goal. And I feel stuck at this pound because I've been here for years. But man, I'd love to be at this pound. Okay, you have the goal. That's an intention, right? But there must be one action step. Walk 10 minutes a day. That's one step that you haven't been doing, but that could begin to get you towards that goal that you have set for yourself. So it's just like that one first tiny step.
I think the first uncomfortable step that a person could take to getting unstuck is, I would say, looking themselves in the mirror and saying it out loud.
Yes.
Because a lot of people are stuck and don't want to say it. They feel it, but they don't want to speak to it. Or a lot of people kind of avoid that self-accountability where you look at yourself and you're like, okay, I'm the reason why I'm here, and I'm the only person that's going to get me out of this situation.
Yes.
And you know, you can go your entire life and completely avoid having that conversation with yourself because it is uncomfortable. And you have to look at you, and you're the only one there, and you're in charge of everything that's happened so far and everything that will happen. The person that has to take the step to walk the 10 minutes is you. The person who has to admit that they've gained too much weight is also you.
Yes.
And you get stuck right there in not even saying, oh crap, it's me. When I look around, it's me. So, you know, there is action too, but I think even prior to the action, you have that realization like, oh, like it's just me and me here. This is all my doing. Like I'm the one who has to fix it. And that can be really hard for some people.
You know, when you were saying that, I remember this exercise, Brittany, I used to suggest to women. And I myself did it too. And I suggest to men as well. And what people found it extremely hard. It goes back to this, what you're saying. It was looking in the mirror, you mentioned mirror, and say, I love myself. I love myself. And I can tell you over the years that I've given that exercise to my coaching clients. I would say 95%, I'm not exaggerating, so they couldn't do it. So I said, okay, if you can't look in the mirror and say, I love myself, I don't care if you're a Christian or not, I believe that love is prideful, it doesn't matter. I love who I am. I love me. Then the second question, if you can't do that, is why can't you do that? What about yourself that you do not love, that you would want to see changed? That's the work. That's the work.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to what you say, looking in the mirror and having that come to Jesus moment. Am I stuck? Why don't I love myself? Why am I not pleased with myself? Why am I not happy with myself? Why?
Yeah, you have to conquer self before you can get unstuck. You can't get unstuck without that.
Yeah, it goes back to the alcohol question, right? If you don't admit you're an alcoholic, you'll never start getting treatment, right?
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Well, that's pretty much all we have today. Thank you again for sitting with us and having this conversation, and we are looking forward to what's in store for next week.
And don't stay stuck.